designing a website, or shall I say redesigning a website, is a pretty big undertaking. And it's not something that you want to start without any kind of a plan or something like that. And it involves a lot of people in your company, right? So you got to think about that. But then even after you start the process, you've got the right vendor, there's a lot of mistakes that you can make. And having been involved in hundreds of web design projects over the last 10, 15, 20 years, let me share some of my experience with that in terms of the top 5 web design mistakes that you should avoid. So I'm going to talk about things like goals and strategy. Well, like what are some mistakes there that you could avoid? Why some people seem to neglect user experience in their design and they just get completely lost and they forget the user. And then also overlooking SEO. That's a common one. People just completely forget about SEO. And then they're getting better at this next one, but they still sometimes forget it. How does the website feel on mobile, right? The mobile experience, very important. And people forget it. I think it's just something that is maybe an afterthought and things like that. And then the other one is unrealistic timelines. I mean, it takes time, man. I mean, coding, designing, copywriting, putting everything together, it takes time. So unrealistic timeline, lack of planning. What's that? Oh, what's that adage? Your lack of planning should not constitute a crisis on my part, or something like that. And then insufficient testing and quality assurance, not testing everything, not going through everything to make sure that it works on all the OSs, all the devices, all the browsers and things like that. And so what I'm going to do today in this episode is I'm going to walk you through these main mistakes so that I can help you avoid making those mistakes and that you can have a wonderful web redesign journey, and that you could get the website of your dreams. So with that, let's talk about these mistakes and how you can avoid them. Welcome to the latest episode of Corner Your Market. I'm your host, Sailesh Kimide. In this podcast, I talk about all things digital marketing, from website design and development to SEO and PPC, as well as paid advertising, email marketing, social media, and anything in between. If you're a small business owner, a marketing manager in a company, or an entrepreneur, this podcast is for you. So tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. You'll gain some practical insights, new strategies, tactics, and tools that will help you grow your business. To subscribe, go to corneryourmarketpodcast.com and select the podcast app of your choice. Then you can hit subscribe within those apps. That again is corneryourmarketpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to like and share our individual episodes. You can also leave a review in the app once you've listened to one of our episodes. So when you're talking about the mistakes that you need to avoid when redoing a website or restarting a project or website project or doing a brand new website, is a lot of times when I talk to people that want to do it, they have really no idea what the goal of this website should be or what their strategy should be, right? So they have seen things, that they like. They have seen things that they don't like. They can't really articulate it very well. But then when you put a website in front of them, they start to get very picky and they don't really like that and things like that. So what I would suggest if you're going to do a new website or you're going to redesign a website is really jot down the goals for your website. What do you want this website to do? Do you want to increase conversions? Do you want to improve user experience? Is this a brochure website? Is this an e-commerce website? Do you want people to be able to process payments? How do you want to do all of that stuff, right? So spending some time outlining the details of that, and then getting a really clear image in your mind of what you want your website to do, what kind of goals you want it to achieve and things like that. It really helps because when I work on a new website project with folks, they want pricing up front. I mean, they're like, I want a website, give me a price. I'm like, okay, what do you want your website to do? And then they give you very high level things that don't make much sense. And then they still want a price. And so you do the best as you can with the experience that you have, and you put together a proposal and you send it to them. And then they sign on, and then we have a process of having them fill out a questionnaire. And then they fill out the questionnaire, and then you compare that to their original, and you're like, what? This is not what we're going to be building. right? Because it's completely off. They really had no idea up front what they wanted. And now as we've clarified what they want, what we should do, it's more clear to them, right? So maybe my sales process is broken, but now that I'm thinking about it, I might want to do that up front. But what I'm trying to say is maybe you as a client or as a customer need to spend some time up front thinking through what is the goal for your website, what is it that you're trying to achieve, and what is your strategy for achieving that, right? And so that will be a really good start. And then also make sure that you have buy-in in your organization on that, so that you don't want the VP of marketing or the CEO to look at the beta version of the website and say you're completely off. That is not the time to show them that. The time to show them that is when you discuss the website and say, this is what we're looking to do on the website. So if you're a marketing manager at a company, or you're like a marketing director or something like that, or a VP of marketing, and you're thinking about doing this, do spend some time doing that. And then the other thing that people seem to, this is like one of those traps where, tunnel vision traps, where you spend a lot of time thinking through things from your perspective, from your customer, from your perspective as a company, and you haven't thought through it as from the user perspective, right? So, and so if you don't have a good understanding of who your user is or who you're targeting, it's really hard to know what they're going to do on the website. Which page is important? Where do the call to actions need to go? How should the products be organized? Which products should be highlighted up front? Things like that. So, and there can be, and also web designers, developers, we work in this all the time. So we also have preconceived notions of what you should do and what you should not do. And I'll be a little bit vulnerable here. I get a little opinionated on this topic. So for instance, there's this one company I worked with a couple of years ago. They're a wholesale distributor. They're not targeting consumers on their website. It's for, OEMs and people like that. But my designer, we just kept looking at it from the customer perspective, like how does the end customer feel? And the client had to keep reminding us that this is a wholesale customer. This is not a end user situation. And so that's important. And it was good because our client had a really good idea of who their customer was and how the usability, how they were going to use the website. And so that ensured that we had a really good website that we delivered to them, right? So sometimes in order to get a really good idea of your user experience, you might need to do some custom user research. You might have to go back, if you already have an existing website, you might have to go back to your Google Analytics and look at, the actions and things like that people are taking on their website, on your website. Look at the data and see which pages are popular, which ones are what people are doing and things like that. And then also run it by your different departments. I mean, if you have a receiving, customer service department, they're always getting questions on XYZ. How do you answer that on the website? Or the sales guy, that's a good guy to talk to. He has she has a really good idea on who the end user is, right? So get buy-in on the user experience across the organization. Run different scenarios. Ask hard questions. Ask difficult questions. Ask uncomfortable questions. Ask questions like, what is going to frustrate my user, and how can I make sure that they're not frustrated? And make sure that all those things are really well understood, and that you have a way of checking back on that as the web design process moves on. Because that's the other thing is, you could have that mindset, but the web design process could be lengthy and long, and in that process, you lose sight of your customer, you lose sight of the UX and things like that, and you get carried away about making the logo bigger. That's a common thing I get. Can you make the logo bigger? That's common. I mean, I don't know. If I had a penny for every time I heard that, I'd probably have $10 by now. So yeah, I hear that a lot. But what I'm trying to say is, when different people look at the design we put in front of them, things start to move and things start to change, and you lose sight of your user and your user experience. So what I'm trying to say is, keep that front and center, keep it nearby, and reference it from time to time. And then The next thing web design people make, they overlook this all the time. I just talked to a guy yesterday, got a really nice, pretty looking website. I asked him about SEO and how well the website is from an SEO standpoint. And he thought, I don't know. Thought, wow. So your designer in the web design process never talked you through this thing called web, SEO and optimizing it and how to get that thing, like H1 tag. How is the H1 tag, H2 tag set up? How is how is the text positioning? You know what I mean? I mean, just having a pretty picture with one sentence works with brands like Apple because they've got huge brand awareness and they don't need SEO, really, right? Think about it. The big brands that have amazing creative designs don't need SEO. It's guys like you and me that need SEO, right? And we need to make sure that our site is designed. It needs to look pretty. It looks to look nice. It's got to have good UX. But it's got to be found. It's got to be found. You got to be able to you got to be able to optimize that content to be able to make your website do something for you. I cannot believe how many times I come across sites where SEO was an afterthought. Site structure, metadata, these are all things you need to be talking about. Mobile responsiveness. That one blows me away too. In this day and age, how often we have a mobile device practically attached to our hip. And yet when we design websites, we don't think about the thing attached to our hip. Especially designers that work on large monitors. They got their big fancy schmancy, Mac monitors and everything's huge and big. And they're not thinking about the thing that is literally sitting next to them while they're designing their website, right? And so a lot of times, these days, when my designer and my design team come back to me and say, hey, the website's ready for your review, my first question is, how does it look on mobile? How does it look on mobile? What is the mobile experience? And I even asked them up front, did you test it on mobile? I don't want to look at it until you've tested it on mobile. And I used to, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, oops, we'll test it on mobile. Here you go, boss. Nowadays, I've trained my team well enough that it's really good on mobile right from day one. So for mobile, what I would recommend is when you get that beta link or when you're looking at the mock-ups, actually, let's go upstream a little bit. When you're looking at the mock-ups, have your design team render the homepage and at least maybe 2 or 3 interior pages in a mobile view setting. How is it going to look on mobile? Show it to me. I want to see at least a mock-up. Right? So you do not want to miss that stage at all. And then the other one is unrealistic timelines. That's a big one. People want to do websites. They think websites just appear. They just appear. They don't just appear. As much as AI, I know there's an AI tool out there. I'm not going to mention it on the show, but there's an AI tool out there that supposedly this dude that was the worldwide chess champion at age 12 has built this thing called, I forget the name of it, but you could basically go in and have a website built in a couple of seconds, right? Okay. Let's see how that goes. I'm not a skeptic. I guess I'm a skeptic, but unrealistic timelines is a big one. I think sometimes the web design agency themselves does not do a very good job of setting expectations, of creating realistic timelines, and allocating sufficient resources, budget, and team. So sometimes we have an 8-week deadline and the client goes on vacation halfway through. Not a good sign. If you're going to go on an 8-week vacation or 3-week vacation on an 8-week project, I guess they're European because Americans don't go on 3-week vacations, but unrealistic timelines is a big one. Lack of planning is another one. I mean, they need, you need photography, you need copywriting, you might need illustration files, you might need, you might need to create graphs, charts for the website. You might need to do animations. Those are all really, really heavy, design time things and takes time. So plan for that. Plan for that. And then, the other one is insufficient testing. I don't run into this as much maybe as I used to, but testing it on mobile, but also testing things like forms, testing, any interactive elements that's on the website, searches, how does it look, how does it perform, purchase transaction. The thing that people don't realize is what I would recommend is if you have an e-commerce website is create a dummy product. Hear me out. This is really complicated. Hear me out. Create a dummy product for like $1, right? Or just $1. And then do a live transaction on your website on that dummy product, right? It only costs you $1 to do it, and you can always go back and reverse the charge. Not a big deal, right? So it'll help you test things out and what does it look like and things like that. So that would be the other one that I would kind of make sure that you spend a lot of time doing, right? So those are the mistakes that you should avoid. But how about, I want to give you a little bit of another perspective as well. I covered this in another episode on how to choose a digital marketing agency. But how about when you're working with a designer? What are the things that maybe you need to consider when you're trying to figure out which agency you want to use for your design, right? Unless you're doing it in-house. I guess those points that I just mentioned to you would be applicable if you're designing it in-house and you've got staff in-house to help you with the website. But if you are outsourcing it, what are some of the things that you need to consider? Some of the things you need to consider is, I covered it in the other episode. Maybe you just go and listen to that episode. But goals and requirements, they need to understand your goals and requirements. You need to communicate it very well. Your goals, your audience, your requirements, features that you want on your website, everything, newsletter subscriptions, support tickets, whatever it is you want them to do on the website. And then evaluate their design experience, look at some of their designs, ask for their portfolio, talk to some of their clients. And then the big one here on the web design side is the process, the web design process itself, the design and development process. Like, how involved are you going to be as a client in that process? My experience says you should be pretty involved with your agency that's doing it, meaning there should be stages, specific milestones in the project timeline where you actually have to approve things, and the project doesn't move forward until you have approved those things, okay? I think that's very important. And so ask them about that. So if you're going to work with a digital marketing agency on a web design project, ask them for their detailed project process and how involved you're going to be. If you're going to use a freelancer, ask that freelancer for the same thing, because it shouldn't be any different. I mean, and then based on all of this information, assess their ability to meet your timeline and your budget. Like, are they being realistic? When you look at their process, if they've got a lot of steps built in, that means a lot of man hours. And then, are they going to feel like your project is not profitable, and are they not going to give their full attention? Do a little bit of an assessment of their timeline and their budget, right? So, and then the last one is communication. I mean, when you're evaluating anybody or any agency, you got to focus on communication. How are they going to communicate to you? Do they have a project management software that they're going to tie you into, that they can provide updates, auto updates with, and things like that? So there's definitely a lot of things for you to consider there. So that way you don't make those mistakes, and you're selecting the right vendor to be able to do the website project, right? So to just kind of recap on this one, there's a lot of mistakes people make when they're redoing their website. They don't think through things. They don't plan things very well. They don't have a really good idea of what they're trying to do. So we covered that in this episode. So I don't want to rehash it right now, but that's some of the things we covered. And then we also talked about how you can select the right vendor if you're going to outsource this thing to be able to do your website design. So with that, I'm going to sign off and wish you happy marketing. But if there are design projects where maybe you want me to take a look, you're midway through a project and you want my feedback, I'm certainly open to that as well. So find my email address on my website and get back to me. But until then, happy marketing to you.
If you're a small business owner, a marketer in a company, or an entrepreneur, this podcast is for you. You'll become better educated and informed when it comes to digital marketing. And if you implement the strategies, tactics, and tools I discuss in this podcast, your business will grow and prosper. To subscribe, go to corneryourmarketpodcast.com. That again is corneryourmarketpodcast.com. You can also search for Corner Your Market in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast, and you can subscribe through those apps. Also, don't forget to like and share our individual episodes. You can also leave a review. Finally, I would love to hear from you, so if you have any questions, feedback, or general comments about the topics I discuss, feel free to send me an email. I will be sure to share and discuss your feedback on the air if it will benefit our listening audience. You can write to me at connect@corneryourmarketpodcast.com. Just put listener comment in the subject line. That email again is connect@corneryourmarketpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. I look forward to being back next week. Until then, be good and do good.